to gain from not prosecuting these people?
The government in the United States wants to foster the view that things are going well in Iraq. Coming down hard on war profiteers is inconsistent with that goal. If you're a war profiteer in Iraq, crime does pay.
In Diwaniyah, Dr. Ali Fadil is finding that the problem is not crime, but a lack of basic equipment.
This is a maternity hospital, yet the neonatal care unit is desperately short of proper facilities. There are only 14 incubators, and they are old, made in the 70s. Most are broken, doors held in place by wires and tubes, and even plasters. This is unhygienic. They should be sealed to keep out germs.
جاي نخلي بها أكثر من طفل يعني 2 أو 3 بالحاضنة الوحدة لأن ماكو هنا 13 14 حاضنة عندنا مرات يصير الدخول 20 طفل أو 25 أو أكثر.
Staff here feel angry, but they also feel betrayed. The coalition says it's spent hundreds of millions of dollars on health, yet still babies suffer unnecessarily for lack of basic equipment. The coalition says security problems have slowed down progress in rebuilding Iraq. The climate of violence makes everyone nervous. On the road between Diwaniyah and Baghdad, I was becoming increasingly worried about my own safety. I was shot at by American troops on 2 occasions, once bursting the tires of my car. They drove off without explaining. But worse was to come. In the middle of the night, heavily armed American forces blasted their way into my home in Baghdad, the house we share with my wife's family.
Suddenly we just hear that big explosion, and then all the windows of the house, we start hearing the windows breaking down. And then my wife woke up, and Sarah woke up, and Sarah started crying, and she jumped to me and said, Daddy, I'm afraid. And then suddenly we saw the door opens, and there is fire starting shooting from the door, and then 3 Americans got inside the room, and they got me out of my bed, and they laid me down here on the ground.
Around 20 American soldiers took part in the raid. The house was wrecked. My father and brother-in-law were beaten up. Their car was smashed. I was tied, hooded, and taken in an armored truck to a military base where they held me overnight. In the morning, they said it was a mistake, released me, and gave me $1,500 in compensation.
Right now, I'm thinking just like what the rest of the Iraqis that I know, thinking that I'm gonna leave Iraq. I'm not gonna stay here anymore. I don't think it's gonna be possible for me to raise up Sarah here in Iraq, but I'll come back one day. I'll come back.
It was only after dispatches complained to the US ambassador in Iraq that he apologized. But he said that in the war against insurgents, such incidents might happen again. I felt angry, but determined to continue my investigation. I still wanted to know what happened to Iraq's money.
In Diwaniyah Pediatric Hospital, parents wait in anxious vigil by their sick children. But as in hospitals throughout Iraq, whether their children live or die could be determined by a lack of basic medicines and equipment.
In the emergency room, I found this girl. Her name is Zahra, and she's only 2 days old. She has infant respiratory distress syndrome, a serious condition. She urgently needs drugs, like synthetic surfactant to help her lungs work, and oxygen. But the hospital has no surfactant and no oxygen regulators. Instead, staff have made a crude arrangement of old suction pipes. There is no way to control the level of oxygen that goes to each incubator. Zahra is a twin, born 1.5 months premature. Her family live in Diwania, where her mother is a teacher. The other twin, Abbas, is in a different ward, where I met their father.
والله تشوف انت يعني تعبان وضعيته تعبانه ما مستقر.
The doctor said that because of shortages of drugs and equipment, around half the children with this condition will die. I needed to understand why hospitals are still so short of vital medicines and equipment. Even a small part of Iraq's $23 billion could have paid for these things. I wanted to ask Paul Bremer, the man who was in charge of the money, but he declined to talk to me.
But of all the mysteries surrounding the disappearance of so much Iraqi money, perhaps the most bewildering is this. The coalition was due to hand over whatever was left of the Iraqi money to the incoming interim Iraqi government. But instead of trying to leave them as much as possible, the CPA spent the weeks leading up to the handover on an extraordinary spending spree. In a series of increasingly exasperated emails, Federal Reserve Bank official Timothy Fogarty told his colleagues what was going on.
Just when you think you've seen it all, the Coalition Provisional Authority is ordering $2,401,600,000 to be shipped out on Friday, June 18th.
In the last few weeks of the CPA, according to the records that we have, we feel that there was a large push to expend the money that was remaining from the DFI. And at the time, we felt that there wasn't adequate planning in place, there wasn't adequate prioritization in place, and so there was a bit of a rush to get the money out the door and to spend it on reconstruction projects that maybe could have been better thought through.
As the date of the handover approached, the coalition asked for more and more cash.
I just left you voicemail,
wrote the Federal Reserve's Timothy Fogarty.
The CPA is now asking if we can add $1 billion to the already scheduled Tuesday shipment. It makes it a $3 billion shipment.
The CPA's rush to spend saw no less than $5 billion go in the month before the handover. One CPA official was given nearly $7 million and told to spend it in 7 days.
He was given $6.75 million on the 21st of June and told to spend it by the 28th of June. And he told our auditors that he felt that there was more emphasis on the speed of spending the money than on the accountability for that money.
He was given that money in cash?
Yes, he was.
On the 28th of June 2004, 2 days earlier than announced, Bremer handed power over to the interim Iraqi government. His authority had somehow disposed of nearly $20 billion of Iraq's reconstruction money. Of that, the largest amount, $8.8 billion, went to the Iraqi ministries. But the coalition didn't account for how it was all spent.
If a ministry came in and said, you know, our portion of that money is $200 million, essentially the CPA would give them the $200 million and they would then be responsible for spending that. Where we felt there could have been better internal controls is in tracking where that money was used. In one ministry, there were over 8,000 people that were on the payroll, and when we tried to verify how many people were actually on the payroll, we could only come up with a little over 600 verified names. So there were concerns about the use of that money and the abuse of that money, and we felt that there could have been better control.
Today, US investigators are trying to track down those who stole Iraq's money. They admit that their investigations into the Coalition Provisional Authority have come too late. Even so, they have 50 criminal investigations underway.
We launched several fraud investigations, and in the last couple of weeks we've actually had 3 arrests of individuals who are suspected of everything from bid rigging to bribery to fraud to money laundering and several other charges.